Welcome to another panel, another episode of the Multiverse Fundraiser. This panel, we're going to be talking about X-Men and how it relates to neurodivergence, how it's a metaphor for that, characters that are canonically neurodivergent. If you're wondering, why am I qualified to talk about it? Well, I am neurodivergent, got ADHD and a few other neurodivergences going on there. And I cosplay a ton of X-Men. I've been reading X-Men, watching X-Men since I was a kid. So that's my qualifications. I am not a doctor. Hashtag not a doctor. But I also want to talk about, before we start this panel, there's a lot of language that is contentious in various communities. So just wanted to explain why we're going to use the language we're going to use for this panel. So a lot of people disagree on whether to say autistic or person with autism. In our experience, most adults who are autistic prefer that identity first language. So we're going to honor that. If you are autistic and you prefer that person first language, we respect that. That's your choice. If you are a person who isn't autistic and you have an opinion, unfortunately, your opinion does not have as much weight. You don't get to tell people how to identify. So another thing, disabled is not a bad word. So when we talk about disabilities, when we call someone disabled, it's not a bad word. We're not using it to insult anyone. Disability is just something that happens to people. It's something that some people are, and it's something that is important to talk about and has been a taboo for so long. But X-Men is all about marginalized groups and how they survive, how they deal with being marginalized. So I think it's important that we talk about it. So when we say disabled, we're not going to pussyfoot around. We're just going to say disabled. So if this language offends you all, I do apologize. We're also not going to use any slurs here, but disabled is not a slur. Autistic is not a slur. And so let's bring in my other panelists. So I have my partner in crime, my platonic soulmate, Crayle Vanest, my Phoenix sister. Let me add her to the stage. Welcome, Crayle.
Hi, I am so sorry about the glare behind me. I don't have my personal podcast spot set back up yet. We moved recently, so
you just flew too close to the sun.
I mean,
you are Dark Phoenix, so just don't eat that sun, okay?
I was just gonna say that's kind of my thing, snacking on them. I eat suns for breakfast.
Yes. And then let's bring out Ryan Permison, who is another partner in crime that we have collaborated with for years, and we adore Ryan. And welcome, Ryan.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Good to be back with the Phoenix sisters. My goodness gracious, it's a family reunion, and yeah, I'm just wearing a geeky shirt that's got some little bit of X-Men swag on it, so I'm not nearly as qualified as these two fine individuals are, but I'm trying my best here. I don't eat Suns for breakfast. I more so just eat protein-filled waffles covered in what do you call it? 100% pure maple syrup and wash it down with ice cold milk. So that's part of a complete breakfast, kids. Hashtag not a sponsor of this broadcast. Yeah.
Yes, because t-shirt qualification is the metric we use.
I guess. Yeah. This is one that's got like a whole bunch of geeky symbols on it. So
including that's awesome.
By the way. So
we love it.
It helps out everybody.
Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch all the geeky interests.
Very true.
And Ryan is asking, what are the new members' pronouns? Which is a great question. We do try to respect people's pronouns here. So Crayle and I are both she, her. Ryan, what is your preferred pronoun?
Oh, he, his, that kind of thing.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ryan, for asking that. No problem. We always try to leave a space for people to put their pronouns if they want to. And Hollis Thompson thanked us for clarifying the terms.
I know that
guy. Yeah, we love Hollis.
I know.
And again, I do want to specify if someone who has that diagnosis identifies differently. We respect that. These are just the terms that the majority of the autistic community prefers. And so that's why we're going to use these terms. And so we don't mean any disrespect to people in that community. If you're outside the community, though, and you disagree with the terms we're using, unfortunately,
don't add us.
Yeah, well, you can, but I'm pretty feisty, and you don't want to argue with me online. It's ugly because I enjoy it. Sorry.
And we have lots of hellos in the comments.
Yay.
Hi, Selena Rivera.
Obi-Wan.
Hi,
Hello,
Marco.
man.
Hi, JJ.
What's up, JJ?
And I wanted to say, so I was talking about how disabled is not a bad word. It simply means that it's more difficult to navigate the world as it currently exists. And I think that ties in really well with mutant powers, because many mutant powers can make it so difficult to navigate the world, even when they're also superpowers. So one example is Cyclops he has to wear sunglasses to control his eye beams because he had a head injury when he was younger. So I would argue that Cyclops has a disability, even while it's also a superpower, which a lot of people will say that their disability is also a superpower. So I mentioned that I have ADHD. It can be a superpower and it can be a disability. There are times when I can harness my ADHD and do amazing things. There are times when it is just crippling and I can't do anything. And I feel like Cyclops' powers, Rogue being unable to touch people without draining their life force and also absorbing their memories, which is so overwhelming. Again, disability. Telepaths, which I have a lot of thoughts on telepaths, so we'll circle back to that. But telepaths being overwhelmed with other people's thoughts, I feel like is a great metaphor for being overstimulated. And,
I with Rogue and not being able to touch people, the distance and oh no, bad things will happen because of touch sometimes reminds me I have really, really, really intense sensory experiences sometimes. Like sometimes when I touch a leather couch, it feels like it's burning my skin. I didn't know I was autistic when I was a kid. I didn't know till I was 27. So I would complain when I was little, and adults who were trying to be helpful would be like, oh, like, here, let's help you work it through. Oh, you just didn't like it, but look at your skin. You're not injured. You're not burned, because we didn't know that my brain processes pain differently. And just the general sensory experiences of touch differently. And so that's not the same thing as, oh, I'll drain somebody's life force, but it still feels terrible. And sometimes I feel like I'm just walking around trying to manage, like trying to maintain a bubble is really difficult. So
that's painful. Yeah. And sometimes physical touch is overstimulating to me. Like, I'm like, don't touch me. Like after a day of my kids being all over me, I don't want anyone to touch me. And that can be painful. It can be just like, if one more person touches me, I'm going to like collapse into a sobbing heap. That's a disability. That's awful.
Yeah, it does not feel good to be really touched out and overwhelmed that way. And then your spouse comes home and wants to kiss you hello after a 12-hour shift. And you're like, I'm going to throw up or cry because my spouse tried to kiss me hello. That doesn't feel good for him either. Like,
no. I think that's why Rogue resonates with so many people, though, because a lot of people have some sort of issues with that. I think a lot more people are neurodivergent than they realize, because what people don't realize is PTSD is also neurodivergence. And it can mimic a lot of similar symptoms that we see in autism and ADHD, which makes those two so hard to diagnose if you've had trauma.
Yeah,
Ryan?
I'm worried that we talked over you or
I was
didn't
going to
give you
say,
room
I'm
to
sorry.
talk.
Let's let
No.
Ryan talk.
I'm
What are
I'm
your
just
thoughts, Ryan?
I'm just listening. I'm just I'm absorbing this like a sponge because a moment ago we were asking what are your qualifications. Well, all I can say is I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I traveled quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague. I had a pretty good time during that. After seeing The Exorcist at 167 times. Anyway, so there's a Michael Keatonism right there. No. No, this is a really good conversation. Yeah, for me being autistic myself, one of the things I'm sensitive to is very, very bright lights. So if the lights are too bright, that'll be like, kind of like what Dark Phoenix was saying over here, like getting burned by the sun. Although I don't eat suns for breakfast. I just want to make that perfectly clear.
That
But
we know of.
that we know of. Yeah, I'm gonna put that in my studio notes for next time. Thank you. But no, the bright lights can be a lot for me. I don't really. I'll be honest with you. I haven't been to a concert in years because concerts, especially now, it's so loud, it's so over stimulating.
There's
As one
so
might say,
much.
that I can't. I just can't attend concerts anymore. As much as I may want to, like depending on who the band is, what the set list is. For those of you who follow this kind of stuff. If I hear, some of my favorite bands are playing down the road from me, I'm like, oh, I want to go, but I know I'm going to walk out 2 minutes after being there because I just can't. It's too bloody loud, mate. It's too loud. So for me,
And
I'm
the
just
lights?
well,
Oh, the lights are like migraine.
sometimes the stage lights, yeah. If you're
Mhm.
looking at the set piece, yeah, the stage lights could be a bit of a pain, as one might say. But yeah, no, I'm just used to sitting at home and going on a friendly neighborhood YouTube hashtag not sponsor and just listening to music that way because that way you can control the volume control on your laptop or your mobile device. Am I right, fellas? So I'm
I
used to doing
even
that. I mean, heck,
I
I
even
was listening
sometimes get
to a little
over.
thing called X-Men themes to get hyped up for this panel that we're filming right now. Isn't that amazing, kids? We can do that. Go to YouTube, watch your favorite intros to television series because it was an easier and simpler time when we were watching those shows. Don't you see what I'm saying?
There are times when I can't go to the movie theater
Yeah.
because that will give me a migraine or
Oh, yeah.
just. And I hate that because I love going to the movies,
Yeah.
but 3D movies almost certainly right out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's
I feel you
terrible.
on the concert thing. I had to hang out in the lobby and wait on
Yep.
my family when I saw Weird Al
Oh, no way.
indoors. I have discovered that in really big venues, sometimes I can do a balcony seat way back, the seats that nobody else wants anyway. And sometimes I can do outdoor venues, especially because I live on the farthest edge of the Eastern time zone. So it doesn't get dark till like 9 p.m. So when the lights are going off, it's not that harsh contrast in my eyeballs. But I've had to leave so many events halfway through. I just won't buy indoor concert tickets anymore, probably, unless it's a really big venue where I can sit really far away. When we wrap this part up, though, Hollis has a really good question that I'm going to put on screen in a minute. I just don't want to
Sure.
cut off any further thoughts we have on the whole sensory profile being compared to Rogue and some other X-Men who have trouble with touch and sensory input.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with Hollis's question.
Okay, so it's a two-parter. I'm going to read it out loud.
Oh boy.
Hollis asks, does the fact that you get PTSD instead of being born with it not impact how it's classified? So, being neurodivergent is a huge umbrella term that affects things that occur with the way our brains process information. I'm not a neuropsychologist or anything. This is just from me going on a few deep dives. So you can be born neurodivergent, as in having diverged from what certain sets of the norm are, or you can become neurodivergent because things happen in our brains, which is another one of those reasons Kelly was mentioning. A lot more people are neurodivergent than know or would classify themselves that way, because that can happen to you at any point in your life. And so if you're not neurodivergent and you're out there listening, first of all, cool, awesome. We're glad you're interested, but also this could become relevant to you someday, even if it's not. It's the same thing as being understanding to people who are disabled, even if you're not disabled, because arthritis can be a disability. Over 50% of Americans get arthritis at some point in their life before they leave this realm, this world, So you might be thinking, oh, it's not a big deal that some containers are hard to open. Well, when you're 60, I hope it's still not a big deal for you, but it probably will be. So conversations about accommodations, about having different sets of needs, it could become relevant to you someday, and you would never know sitting where you are right now. So yes, PTSD is still a form of neurodivergence. There are a lot of conversations that I don't think we have time in an X-Men panel to talk about the difference between people who are born neurodivergent than become neurodivergent later in life, what the classifications are for that, because that's contentious even in the medical community. But I do want to talk about your second point. Sorry, I just answered the first one by myself, but I think the meat of the MCU stuff is in this part of Hollis's question for all of us. He says, that makes me think of the difference between how people perceive mutants versus people who get superpowers through other means in the Marvel universe. That's huge. Yeah. Like, plenty of people think Superman and Rogue are equally freaks, right? Like anybody who's different is a freak, shun, get away. But there are in the X-Men universe some people who think that specifically mutants, that's the difference that they want to pick on, which for me, that brings us into a conversation I had been planning to bring up anyway, which was that some disabilities are seen as like acceptable, and some disabilities are seen as like you're just a freak, and people will discriminate differently based on which disability you have or what type of neurodivergent you are.
I did want to say one more thing about Hollis's first question.
Oh, go ahead.
So PTSD will literally change the neural pathways in your brain. And so even when they're, and again, not a doctor, but when they're trying to diagnose it, even if they map your brain, there are times when it's indistinguishable. But the science behind diagnosing autism, ADHD, PTSD is still developing. So this is still a relatively new science. So that's why the classifications are, that's why it's hard to diagnose. And it's hard to know, were you born with this? Because a lot of people don't get diagnosed if they don't present as autistic early in their life as the stereotypical autistic. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, trauma literally changes the pathways of your brain. Sorry, go ahead.
So then in the X-Men universe, the way X-Men, the way mutants in general, the way it occurs is you carry a gene, and then something happens to you around puberty that may or may not make the gene cause your mutation to show up. It becomes like activated, right? And so this is relevant to so many things due to neurodivergence, because a lot of people who, if you're born neurodivergent, it probably won't be recognized until later, because kids hit their milestones at all different time periods. Kids can't communicate with us in ways that are very standardized for a very long time, and communication never becomes fully standardized. But you might not notice that one of the signs that your kid is autistic could be that they're also non-speaking, and you're not going to know that when they're 9 months old, because very, very few 9 months old are speaking. But then also something that is really stressful is usually what causes the X gene to bring your mutation up to the front. And so that also works for neurodivergences that you gain later in life. Like, say, if you had complications that were lasting after a traumatic brain injury or something like that. It's like there was a genetic predisposition in some of these things, and things happen in life that make the disability become visible. And there are so many layers of what is or isn't visible, what's diagnosable, what's socially acceptable. I love the X-Men part of the Marvel universe for this in particular, because already you've got mutants in the X-Men world. It was latent, it was there, they can't do anything about it, and then they have to adjust, and the people around them choose how to react to it becoming apparent. that was there. But even within mutants, some mutants are more acceptable than others. You have mutants who are able to hide that they are a mutant. You would never know if they didn't tell you. If Angel wears the right stuff, if he hides his wings, you don't know. Beast, never going to be able to hide it. But even then, what isn't acceptable, if people don't find the right community of people who accept them for who they are, you end up with further subgroups of mutants in the X-Men universe, where you have the Morlocks, who literally live in sewers and are cast out even by other mutants. And I love this so much. It reminds me of how it's like somebody might say, "Oh, you're just a little ADHD." I don't think you can be a little or a lot ADHD, but that's a conversation for another time. But people will say, "Oh, that's acceptable. Just manage it how you can." Whereas if someone who's bipolar is struggling, I'm just going off an example I saw on social media a couple of years ago, where a lot of people were attacking someone who was making some apologies after some struggles because they were bipolar. And they had this conversation in public, and I'm not giving identifying information, but a lot of people were saying, "Oh, well, you just need to get a handle on that. And it doesn't excuse anything. They had no compassion for this person who was already trying to take accountability for their actions and explain to people who didn't know before that they were bipolar, what they had experienced when they had an uptick in some of their symptoms. It's really hard to talk about neurodivergence and give examples because medical privacy is also very important.
Yes.
I knew that was going to be a struggle coming into this panel, but it's still really hitting me. Yeah, it was acceptable for one thing. In the same group of people, a lot of these people I knew in this big social media pile-on that happened are ADHD, or know that I've been diagnosed ADHD or whatever. And you go, "Oh, I'm having trouble focusing, whatever," and that's acceptable. When I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I was struggling, I was overwhelmed, I couldn't pay attention anymore," it's fine. But this person who was bipolar was being told, "Oh, you're not trying hard enough. You need to either get on the right meds or just learn to deal." There's no excuse. And the person wasn't trying to make excuses. They were just trying to help the person around them understand something that they go through that they can't help, that they're bipolar. So I think the X-Men, particularly out of anybody else in the Marvel universe, has the most like allegorical parallels to all kinds of prejudice.
Yes.
That has to do with their nature and how they were conceived and written to start with, which I'll let Kelly fill us in on that, but it works on so many dimensions.
Yeah, well, they a lot of inspiration was taken from the civil rights movement. So Charles Xavier and Magneto were inspired in part by Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, because they were the two extremes of the civil rights movement. And so it shows kind of the more militant and the more peaceful extreme of two leaders fighting for the rights of their people. So it's so obvious that, the politics have always been in comics, people. If you don't like it, you're in the wrong fandom. But it works on so many levels. And I did want to just give a list of, so not only is a neurodivergence there metaphorically, but there are a few X-Men who are canonically autistic. And I just want to give a rundown of a few of them. So originally, Monet St. Croix was the one that was canonically autistic, but then her story got retconned in a weird way. So she has little sister. So she's a telepath, but she also has little sisters who are telepaths, and they have this weird power to merge and become other people. So they merged and posed as her for years. So Claudette St. Croix, her little sister, is autistic. So Monet would go into, or so she would sometimes be autistic because that would be when Claudette's persona was more emergent. Strange. Yeah, we'll move on because that's
leave it to the X-Men. Leave it to the X-Men.
Was it Strange or was it Doctor Strange? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
In this case, Doctor Strange was not to blame.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
You know
Don't
what?
worry, Benedict Cumberbatch. We're not blaming you, brother.
This time. Then we have Legion, David Haller, who is Professor X and Moira McTaggart's son. So another telepath, which I love that this is playing into my idea of telepaths just being overstimulated. He also can create multiple personalities, which multiple personality disorder also. So that's not neurodivergence, that's a personality disorder, but still. So he can create multiple personalities and his powers are just crazy. They're super powerful because, of course, Professor X is super powerful. And then the last one that I found in my searching to make sure I covered all of them is Laura Dean, who is known as Pathway, not a telepath. So she can create interdimensional portals. And so she's also canonically autistic. So just a few interesting X-Men that are neurodivergent. Oh, thank you, Hollis. Hollis corrected me. So it's now called DID, dissociative identity disorder. I always forget the current term for it, so I appreciate that correction. I'm trying to keep our terms straight and be sensitive. So yes, he has DID. Now, actually, that's also his superpower, but I imagine that also kind of does a number on his head.
Using something that is at one time disabling and another time really empowering as the superpower is one of those areas where X-Men just excels. Like, if you want to recognize that something can, in some situations, be really useful, and in other situations be like really messing up your life at the moment. We already mentioned Cyclops. He wouldn't be a superhero in the way we think of him if he didn't have the ability to shoot laser beams out of his eyes, but also he could hurt somebody really, really badly without his assistive device, which is the glasses that he wears. So
The visor. Yeah.
The visor.
Yeah. The only thing more deadly than that is sharks with laser beams attached to their heads. That's the only
yes,
thing
I knew.
See what I did there? Yeah.
And since we're at the halfway point, let's give the spiel for the charity that we're here for and roll that tape, and then we'll come back and continue our discussion.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
Kelly, you're muted.
I hate to tell you this, Evie, but you're still muted.
We're currently at $860 raised, so that's more than halfway to our goal. This fundraiser link will be open for the next week, just in case y'all need to wait till payday.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely donate. We do not touch this money, just to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
It goes through, the Facebook link goes through Facebook, but goes directly to the cause after that. Or you can go directly to the multiverse, or not the multiverse fundraiser. You can go directly to the Comic Books for Kids website and donate there. Mm-hmm. Helps out kids in need. And I'm laughing at this comment.
Why is that?
Come on, nerds, try going outside with real people. You know what? My house is super comfy, and I love my friends who live inside my computer. And this is the guy who's roasting us in the comments. So, like, while we're actually having a fun discussion, so who's the real loser here?
I'm sorry. I didn't know I wasn't a real person because I was indoors.
Yeah, I'm sitting at my computer. It makes me a homebody, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I do have a 9 to 5 that I have to go to physically every single day, Monday through Friday, for those of you who are wondering. So it's not like I'm in my house 24/7. Although there's a little part of me that potentially wouldn't mind that, because at the same time, I have this giant thing over to the side that you could probably see in the background. It's called a bookshelf. That's got a massive TBR shelves full of books that I really want to read. So hey, if the world were easier and we can lock ourselves in our, fortresses of solitude, if you will, Kelly, wink, 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 wink. I'd just be sitting here reading books, because reading books is awesome compared to some of the stuff that goes on outside our front doors.
No kidding.
So,
It's scary out there.
Yeah, can we escape into a good book? Oh, wait, we can do that with comic books too, Yeah. Plenty of great comic books out there. Heck, there's some great indie comics out there in the world. So, check yourself before you wreck yourself, fellas. I'm just saying.
I just love the assumption that because we're nerds, we don't ever go outside and talk to real people.
No.
I met Kelly at a convention, an entirely outdoor convention years ago. I
think we even touched grass that weekend.
I think we did.
Really?
Right?
Wow.
I know. I just thought that comment was funny.
I never got to hear that part of the story, but anyway. No,
do you want us to describe for you what it feels like? Have you ever touched grass, Ryan?
No, I have. No, yeah. I was just out the other day. I was running errands, so yeah. Thanks, fellas.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, I run errands. I also ran an errand before this show. It's called going grocery shopping.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I had to restock on those happy-go-lucky waffles that I was discussing earlier. So, I needed another batch.
Well, Coffee Black, there is the attention you ordered.
Mm-hmm.
Please donate now that we've given you the attention, because
it's a great cause.
Kids with cancer really need your help.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of them literally can't go outside and touch grass. They really need the escape
cause and
in a completely different way.
So reading is essential, folks. It's essential because, as our good friend taught us 45,000 years ago, all we got to do is take a look. It's in a book. There's your PSA. I did it for you.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I want to get back to.
Why
is that what
Professor named Hollis so good at asking questions? Why is he so good at this? Hollis, why do you keep doing this to me?
I love this. So Hollis says, people not understanding or being sympathetic to neurodivergent people reminds me of the debate around mutants who have really destructive powers. So there is a line in the first X-Men movie where Jean Grey is going to a Senate hearing about mutants, and they're talking about whether or not they should license mutants. And they're like, well, we license weapons. And she's like, okay, but we don't license people to live. Mm-hmm. And that line is super powerful. And of course, storylines like that play out across X-Men comics all the time, because there's a lot of political push in the Marvel universe to somehow restrict mutants and their right to live. And yes, obviously, Jean Grey as Phoenix can eat an entire sun and take out an entire galaxy. That's scary, but you can't just tell someone, oh, you can't exist because you're dangerous.
Which, unfortunately, people have tried to say that people with various different disabilities, whether it's a disability that puts you in a wheelchair or being born autistic, should not exist. It's hyperbole, okay? Like, some autistic kid isn't going to eat the sun.
No,
he's going to eat lots of cookies.
People talk about, like, both burden and risk of people of all kinds of different disabilities, including being neurodivergent, to the point that they say, oh, we should isolate the gene that causes certain neurodivergences and disabilities and make it so that those babies are never ever born.
Mm-hmm.
Or there was a huge push to institutionalize all of those people, and institutions they were put in were horrific to the point that people were dying.
Well, also they were being experimented on and not given the same rights and respect for consent that would have been given to someone who wasn't disabled in that way. So it is neurodivergent people are at risk of being dehumanized in various ways out in the world today, which is why stories about we should have a mutant registry can resonate with me on a personal level beyond just, yeah, that sounds like the government would do something really bad with that.
And the government for a long time was sterilizing autistic people and mentally disabled people and physically disabled people. That was a thing that happened in last century, not even that long ago, like few decades ago. So this is in our recent history in this country of the USA, in case I'm not being clear.
Yeah.
So again, I keep
the old saying. It goes back to that old saying: those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
And I also want to bring up that the first people that Nazi Germany sent to camps and experimented on and sent to the gas chamber were autistic people and other disabled people. If you look up Hans Asperger and why we use the term Asperger's for so long, it's something that will turn your stomach.
Yeah, so I keep coming back to it, but what's awesome and nuanced and great for this conversation, one of the reasons we chose X-Men was that they show the exact same thing, the same power, the same mutation can be used well or used poorly. It can mess up your life, but also really strengthen and empower you. Because we're all individual people. We all make our own choices. We're responsible for ourselves. But it's a lot easier to be a compassionate, responsible person with your own actions when you understand what other people around you are going through too. And, it almost goes back to, there was a pushback in a lot of spiritualist groups about how actually, when we found out how horrible some of the institutions that disabled people were sent to were, to say, actually, disabled people are angels sent here to test our compassion. And we should be so much more kind to those people, where it just went the whole other way on the pendulum swing, right? And that's still dehumanizing. I'm still an individual. I still have agency. Ryan, Kelly, you're individuals with agency, strengths, and weaknesses. We don't just exist to test other people's compassion.
To be inspiration porn.
Yeah.
We should not say that word. I hope we don't get bots though.
Yeah.
But yeah, the X-Men show that it can be both. You have to make the best choices you can.
Well, I mean, two things I want to say real quick is that I was having a discussion about this with some friends of mine in this thing called a writer's Discord, because became a writer last year, folks, go figure. But one of the things we discussed is, why do we have a problem with how these characters are presented in certain stories? Well, it comes down to the writing. It really comes down to the writing. If the characters aren't written well, then you can't really enjoy their stories or relate to them in some way, shape, or form, right? So the bbest thing about X-Men, at least one of the best things I think about X-Men, is that the relatability. Relatability is huge when it comes to storytelling. I don't care if it's a period piece or a horror story, a spy thriller, a crime fiction, whatever. If you do not have at least one character in this story that's relatable, that you can relate to at least in some form or fashion, right, then your story's not going to really be able to carry a lot of weight. So the fact that my friends and I are discussing this and we're making this a big point is that when we're writing our stories, we do our best. It's not always easy. I will admit it, right? I'm still learning, by the way. I mean, I'm a rookie compared to everybody else in that Discord I'm in. I'm a baby trying to climb the ladder, all right? But anyway, relatability is huge. So every time I write a story, I always think, okay, is my main character going to be the one who's relatable, or am I going to try to find something within the antagonist that's relatable? I don't know. But that's the fascinating thing about writing. It's a great thing about writing, really. I mean, you could pick however many characters you want to be relatable, or how little you. I mean, it really is a beautiful thing about fiction, is that when you write these stories, you're creating your own universe, your own world. And yeah, there are certain things you could follow and certain rules and outlines. Outlines, I think, are a big proponent of this. But X-Men, very, very good to me. Relatability, very, very good to me. So when you brought up the Senate hearings in X-Men 1, the original film from 2000, which, by the way, that movie's almost, in a couple of years, it's going to be 30 years of age. And I got to tell
Oh
you,
no, don't say that.
I'm sorry, but
I'm
it's
so
true. We're
old.
getting younger. We're getting younger, Kelly. Don't worry. We're only 25 here. But still, the point is, Kelly, that we're still young and we're always going to look young. But that movie is still going to be relatable 60,000 years later. You know why? Because that first movie is such a great introduction to people who have no idea who the X-Men are, who have never even read a comic book. All
Yep.
right. That Senate hearing alone sets the stage for what a lot of the stuff that was to come in a lot of those movies, including the reboots with First
Yeah.
Class, with Days of Future Past, which if you've never seen Days of Future Past, you're missing out on life, because that movie will just,
It's a
so
fun
good.
movie.
It'll break you, but at the same time, it will inspire you. That's how good that movie is. And that's not an easy thing to do in Hollywood, is to balance all these different storylines and all these different characters. But at certain points in storytelling, they do it quite well. So anyway, my main point is X-Men, very, very relatable. Pick up a comic, watch one of the films, one of the good ones, because some of them are not as good. But if you need help with that, that's why Kelly, Crayle, and I are here to give you the right menu instead of the maybe not so good one. So believe me, I have my favorites. I have some that are maybe not on their lists, but that's okay because all art is subjective. Am I right? So yeah, relatability is key when looking at characters. Am I right, Kelly?
Oh yeah, for sure. And the nice thing about comics and sci-fi and fantasy stories is they give you enough separation from our world that we can explore these heavy topics. So it's just fantastical enough that you can have these allegories and it's like a safe space to kind of shift your perspective and explore it. And it doesn't feel so close to home. And when you have the relatable characters, that's your way in. So you're not being preached at. It's just like a natural progression of the story. And that's why X-Men resonates so much, because they do have real issues that they tackle, but you care about the characters. And that's why I love X-Men. So
I mean, goes back to that last scene, right, Kelly? Why do you come here, Charles? Why do you ask questions which you already know the answer? Continuing search for hope. Just that first movie, there's so many good scenes. There's really not, I can't really say there's like a bad scene in that whole movie because it's so relatable. It is so relatable. And the fact that they're playing chess at the end,
oh yeah,
like having that back and forth about who's going to win the war or who's going to do this, that, and the other to prove them wrong. I mean, Kelly, we could sit here and just have that on loop while we're cleaning the house or when we're hanging out with the kids. It's like, hey, X-Men's on. What part are we at? Oh, they're at the part where Rogue sneaks into Logan's trailer. Okay.
yes.
Yeah, something else I think the X-Men world does so well. So something I harp on as an editor is if you're going to write about a disenfranchised group where their struggle of what makes them disenfranchised and whatever the context is an important part of the story, you need to show that people within that group will disagree with each other. You need to show in some way, shape, or form that group X, no pun intended, pun a little bit intended, group X is not a monolith. And so the best example I could ever give if I were trying to talk to an author that I'm editing about this as they're brainstorming their story or doing like a developmental edit is Charles and Magneto. They're both responding to the same problem. They were both born with the X gene. They mutated. They have powers that threaten people now. They're in the same boat, but one of them wants to just row along and the other one wants to flip the boat over and fly to shore. Okay, like to pick which one you want for which side of the metaphor I just used, but they disagree about what the best way to respond to prejudice is, about whether or not self-segregation is an option, which in disability groups, people who argue spaces should be accessible to me, not an insane argument, but there are people who are so frustrated with things not being acceptable that they're starting to say, well, maybe we should have some spaces that are only for us. And is there legitimacy to that? People argue nonstop. I don't even know how I feel about that, but any disenfranchised group you're going to find some proponents of, okay, I don't want to say any as an absolute, but in many, many disenfranchised group, you will find proponents of self-segregation. You'll find people who think self-segregation shouldn't be necessary at all, but the approach they want to take in fiction and in real life, some people go, what's the best type of activism to get what we want? And other people go, screw it, let's just do a terrorism.
That's exactly it. And that's real. And if a writer does their job well, you can see both sides, even if you're not going to be like, yay, terrorism. Though most people at least resonate with Magneto, are like, okay, he makes some good points.
Hashtag Magneto has a point.
Well, not only the hashtag, Crayle, do you remember the t-shirts they're still selling that says Magneto was right?
Honestly, yeah.
Magneto was right. And then there's one with his helmet on that says M was right or whatever it was. Or it says House of M. And I'm like, oh gosh, they're going real deep with this this shiznit. By the way, this is the good thing about having sticky notes nearby your desk, so you can write down the important stuff that Crayle's been telling me. So if I send her my stories to be edited, she'll be like, okay, did Ryan do this right or did he do it wrong? I wrote it down, gosh darn it. So, yeah.
Maybe Crayle needs to write a book on.
Maybe. Or she could just edit my stories for a while, because I got, Lord knows, I got like, how many do I have in the irons in the fire right now? Probably like 3, maybe 4.
Oh, wow.
They're going to need edits here pretty soon, so who knows?
Crayle should edit every story ever.
She wants to. I mean, she and I got to talk over the rates, but yeah, like one thing at a time. But yeah, who knows? But yeah, I took notes for this, Crayle, so thanks. This is the beauty of having notebooks and pens nearby you.
Yeah, I am just trying to package up the wisdom that I have learned from authors who've done a great job and other editors who have written down the things that they've noticed and great ways to communicate that to other authors. I work really hard at it, but I'm just drawing on. I have great source material to draw on. That's what it is. It's like Ryan says, reading is essential. Like I've read so much. If reading isn't your bag and you want to watch movies that carry these lessons too, just absorb the stories, absorb them how you can, learn what you can. And when you find stuff that like has a nuance that you enjoy, find somebody you can talk to about it with. And they don't have to be outside to be real people.
Yes.
Like I said, I have my writers Discord that I can talk about these stories with. So yay, writers.
Yay.
Yeah, it's been fun.
David is reminding us David, of the one bad part of the first X-Men movie. I mean, know what happens?
Yeah, this question is for Ryan. Ryan, do you know what happens to a frog when it gets hit by lightning?
Exactly. I know what happens. It's the same thing that happens to everything else. It's just,
I also want to point out that line was contributed by Joss Whedon.
That was a Whedon quote? No kidding. I did not know that.
Yep. And on that note, I need to hop off because I'm going to be on the next panel, which
what?
I know. I double booked myself. So I'm going to let you guys finish up. The next panel is Comic Book Spectrum, and we're going to talk about comics that inspire you. So I'm going to be back doing more nerdery with not real people in my screen.
And it's going to be a great discussion, too. We look forward to that.
It is. I'm excited. So you guys have this. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me prattle on.
Yeah, we'll miss you until the next panel.
We'll miss you, and I'm going to tune in for that panel because you got me convinced.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well done,
Hollis says,
Hollis.
Yeah, he says reading good things is the best way to learn how to write as well.
Yeah, that's why like I said, I got a lot of books I'm going to be reading this year. I've already read, how many books have I read so far this year? 6? Yeah, 6 is good. So I've read 6 books so far this year, Hollis.
I've read so many fewer this year. Last year, I was pregnant. I read 286 books just in Kindle.
Say what?
So that's not counting the comic books that I read on paper.
Wow.
I was sick, so I was spending a lot of time in bed. So now I'm looking at this year going, I've only read 20-some books, or not this year, but 2025. I was looking at it halfway through the year going, I've only read 20-some books. That's so low. That's 10%. And then I remember that, I was on bed rest off and on for all of 2024. So you know, that's
a lot of books, though. I got to be honest. That's got to be some kind of record.
Some
for
of them
sure.
were really short. Like I read a
Okay.
series where Kindle counts them as
Right.
separate books,
So they
but
do
each
count.
one was,
Okay.
you know, like, so if you were to count it that way, it was probably still well over like 100 traditional novel length novels.
Oh that's still more than me. So you're kicking tail and taking names. You're beating my records here.
I will probably never beat that again in my life.
You never know. You never know. I mean, originally when I was doing inventory back here in our studio, I was looking at my list and I was like, man, I got like 129. I got to cut this down a little bit. So I got rid of a few books that I just didn't see myself reading potentially, and I donated them. Didn't throw them in the trash, by the way. Always donate. And then I cut it down to like 120. So now I've like read 6 of those so far, and I'm like, yay! I'm finally like I'm making progress because one of my goals, not New Year's, because New Year's resolutions don't exist anymore, but goals for this year, Crayle, goals is to read as much as I can and absorb it like a sponge, so I can get all these things in my head, so that when I'm writing my own stuff, it's like, okay, this is how you pace, this is how you characterize. And plus, I got writing resources right over here on my other shelf. So thank you to everybody who suggested these books, because I appreciate all of you. By the way, Charles F. Millhouse suggested the writing resource books, like the Dialogue Thesaurus, the Well-Spoken Thesaurus, Pulpier Writing Tips, how to write pulp fiction. Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm looking forward to use them as we go along. Sorry, didn't mean to go off on a tangent and talk about something called literature there, Hollis. But I mean, X-Men is kind of, it is storytelling, so it is kind of relevant.
I mean, I have a novelization of the Dark Phoenix crisis in my to be read pile. So, you know, it's still literature.
Okay. I think for my birthday, I'm thinking about getting one of those, what do you call them? The Kindles? I think I'm going to get myself a Kindle paperweight.
Mm-hmm.
But that'll be nice. So then I won't have to take up as much space in my living space anymore.
Yeah. Well, we talked about X-Men and relatability. Ryan, which X-Men do you relate to most?
You mean which character individually?
Sure.
X-Man.
I meant whatever.
No, I was going to say, no, it's a great question. It's a very challenging question, but it is a great question. I would say it's a combination of a couple of characters. I'm sorry. I'm going to use a cheat code in this game. Cyclops, because I have to wear these. Otherwise, without these, I'm blind as a proverbial bat. I'm sorry to say, but I don't shoot laser beams out of my eyes. I just can't see very well. So Cyclops I can relate to. Professor Xavier I relate to a lot because I want what's best for everybody, and I'm trying to help, and I try to help others as much as I can, even though I'm not by the way, I'm not a licensed therapist, neuropsychologist. I don't work in the medical field. I do not do any of those things. I am just someone who mom and dad raised me to be loving and caring of other individuals. So that's where I got that from my parents. God love both of you. And, God rest their souls. But Xavier, because I want to help others. And then I kind of relate to the Incredible Hulk in a way, because there's definitely some times where I just want to unleash the fury, Crayle. But I can't, because if I do, I'm going to get in very serious trouble. And I don't want to get in trouble. So I do want to unleash the Hulk. But, I kind of rein that in a little bit. So, kind of a Hulk. I mean, I know he's not an X-Men character, but he is a Marvel character, so it's somewhat canon. But as far as X-Men go, I think those are the two I probably relate to the most. Yeah, thank you, Hollis. Appreciate it. Yeah. And the funny thing is, Hollis, I still do not own an Incredible Hulk t-shirt. Okay, I have an X-Men t-shirt, but I don't have an Incredible Hulk t-shirt, which, Crayle, one of these days I got to sit down at tpublic.com #not-sponsor and remedy that. Okay, because I need an Incredible Hulk shirt to keep up my Marvel cred. And yes, comics are a form of literature, very much so. I'm trying to think of other X-Men I relate to. Maybe Morph, because Morph likes to make people laugh, right, Crayle? Doesn't Morph like to make people laugh when he changes it to other or other people? So I would say a little bit of Morph. So those are the characters I relate to the most. Do you have 1, 2, maybe even 30 that you relate to?
I relate to so many, but the two that I'm constantly bouncing back and forth between, which is funny because they're rivals with each other, are Jean Grey and Emma Frost.
Oh gosh.
I feel like they symbolize my internal struggle of we're dealing with the same thing, and there are two possible responses to this. Okay. And what's funny is I think sometimes before the Phoenix incident that Jean Grey is kind of bland. I think it's because she's constantly trying to serve other people. She's a well-written character. I don't mean she's written bland. I think if you knew her in real life when she's not wearing her X suit, she's constantly, she's a teacher. She's teaching kids of different ages. She's, helping Professor X with the psychic powers, whatever, and holding everything in all the time. And then and she had like childhood trauma and stuff. Then there's another telepath, Emma Frost, also had childhood trauma, also very, very powerful, who reaches a point in young adulthood where she says, no, I'm going to take up all the space. I'm going to corporate takeover, own the fact that I've been rich and I've been poor and whatever, and I'm going to make all my own rules, which is how even when she's not a villain anymore, she's an anti-hero. She's living by her own code. Whereas I feel like Jean Grey, she's so powerful and spending so much time being concerned about whether or not she's serving others that she represses a lot of herself until something happens, the Phoenix incident, where she just can't anymore. Her power and the choices she makes, the great responsibility coming with the great power after the Phoenix incident, finally starts bringing more of her personality to the surface if you were to know her in real life and not be able to see what's going on in her head as a reader of a comic book.
Yeah. I just forgot to add Logan in there because he deals with isolation, being isolated, because he feels alone a lot, because every time he falls in love with somebody, they either get killed off or they just leave him or something like that, or whatever. They get lost to time. I don't know. But I feel the isolation that Logan feels / Wolverine feels. So I get that. So that's another character I could say I relate to. And Hollis, once again, your observations are just keen, brother, because you're saying that's the most interesting reading of Jean Grey and Emma Frost I've ever heard. So I can get with that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, they're
this is why we
both
pay Hollis the big bucks to comment all these wonderful thoughts.
Yeah, they're both really compassionate people, but Emma Frost is very into tough love. Emma Frost is very into, if I take care of myself first, I can't pour out of an empty cup. Emma Frost is angry and she lets her anger drive, I think, more often than Jean does. Until the Phoenix incident. At the Phoenix incident, I actually feel like Jean kind of merges some of the best and the worst of both pre-Phoenix Jean and Emma Frost. Tries to, the Dark Phoenix happens, right? She's corrupted by all the power and stuff. And then the stories just diverge like crazy, including like time travel and alternate Jean Greys that the Phoenix Force is trying to take over this alternate Jean Grey. But there's this other Jean Grey that doesn't want it. And the Phoenix Force is like, yeah, I don't want you if you don't want me. Fascinating in the Jean Grey comics. Like, I relate to the internal struggle. I relate to the struggle of deciding if it's best to serve others by playing by their rules, or if the most compassionate thing you can do is to just follow your own gut. Like, those are my two back and forth most relatables. So
yeah, now you're tempting me to just go online and buy up all these shirts. But anyway, no, this kind of reminds me of the good old days, Crayle, when you and I were sitting here doing comic books, the new class.
That was a good time. It is unfortunate that schedules got out of sync so badly that we weren't able to do that. You guys can look up back episodes of Comic Books, the New Class on YouTube, where we just
on my channel too. There's a playlist there with all the back end episodes, Crayle, so people can go back and relive some of the glory days of our early careers.
Well, we have 2 minutes left. Ryan, tell everybody where they can find your amazing podcast content.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, by the way, both you and Kelly, Crayle, because we love y'all. We love y'all. Love. My name is Ryan of Anti-Quote Channel. Follow me across all forms of social media, Facebook, was it Instagram, TikTok, the whole nine. Where am I pointing to? Where is it? There it is. At Anti-Quote Channel. I do a show on Saturdays at 12 o'clock Eastern time where I interview some of the best indie creators from all over the world and some actors too. It's been a lot of fun for the last 6 years. And I also do a thing called Movie Watch-Alongs on Friday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern time where we celebrate a movie that turns a certain age. We're calling March Madness because every week we're celebrating a different installment of the Mission Impossible franchise. Turning a certain age, the OG turns 30, MI3 turns 20, and MI4 Ghost Protocol turns 15 this year, Crayle, 15. So join us. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to geek out, nerd out, freak out, check us out at Anti-Quote Channel. And we embrace the nerd within you at Anti-Quote Channel. So come and join us. I think you'll have a great time. And yes, Kaylee and Crayle have been on a couple of our shows, and they're more than welcome to come back anytime. So thanks for having me, Crayle.
Yeah, I'm Crayle. I'm one half of Phoenix Sisters Entertainment. That's me and Kelly. If you go to phoenixsistersentertainment.com, you can find our cosplay stuff, my editing services, the books Kelly wrote, the whole nine, the whole Megillah, all of it. I'm going to play our outro video now because don't forget, we are here for comic books for kids. Excellent cause. Learn more about it in this video.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
The Multiverse Fundraiser would like to thank our sponsors: Earth Dog Studios, Clobberin Comics, The Art of Brian Rodman, Studio Moonfall, Elusive Comics, and of course, the Phoenix Sisters Entertainment Network for hosting this event. Learn how to support these businesses on the MVFR website.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
The Multiverse Fundraiser would like to thank our sponsors: Earth Dog Studios, Clobberin Comics, The Art of Brian Rodman, Studio Moonfall, Elusive Comics, and of course, the Phoenix Sisters Entertainment Network for hosting this event. Learn how to support these businesses on the MVFR website.